Back, coming back. The big going back to schools and colleges begins this week. There's excitement at meeting friends and colleagues. There's concern about how it will all go. What we do know is we can't continue to live on in a half-life or a fearful life. Some new normality has to be worked towards. For Christians, that means coming back together in worship, physically going back to church and being among your brothers and sisters in Christ, and meeting those new to church, joining us from elsewhere, as well as newcomers to faith. Now, I have to say that online meeting has been a godsend, a real case of God bringing good out of bad. And in some instances, meeting online will have real advantages over meeting in person. Yet for those who know the joy of gathering as believers, singing in worship, hearing the scriptures, rejoicing in the presence of one another and sensing God amongst us, coming back to church is really important. The usual verses offered about this are from Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 to 25. Let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. You know, these comments aren't some isolated remark. There's a clear biblical pattern that God's people gathered for worship, teaching and encouraging. In the Old Testament, the people of God regularly gathered for festivals and later on weekly. In the New Testament, weekly meetings were the standard pattern. You know, when Paul wrote 1 Corinthians chapters 10 to 14, correcting errors in their worship, he wrote in the context that they met together week by week. As John Wesley wrote, the Bible knows nothing of solitary religion. Hebrews 10 talks about losing the habit. We may indeed have lost the habit, filled our time with other things, created new habits or distractions, and fitted in online church as and when. It's time for us all to do a rain check. Who's in the room? Who's lost the habit? What are we meeting for? Gathering together is so much more than the individual parts. We meet to glorify God and to edify one another. It's not what's in it for me, but how might others need me to be present. It's about gathering for Him, for others, and for ourselves. The writer to the Hebrews reminds us, meeting together encourages one another, provides the best context to spur one another on, offers rest, restoration and renewal of faith, recalibrates our perspective, attuning it more to God's, making us more ready for the week ahead. We are increasingly coming back. The autumn term is a great time to be part of that, encouraging, spurring and preparing one another to live faithfully and profitably for Christ in our weekday lives.